Have you ever felt like you are meant for something, but have never got around doing it? Maybe because it goes against the expectations that the others have from you, or against the conventions that the society you live in has set. If you ever felt dissatisfied, bound by the rules that you don't understand, then this story is for you. In this video, I'm going to talk about a famous story, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, written by a famous author and a pilot, Richard Bach. Now let's know about the author. Richard Bach is a writer and pilot and the author of 3 books on mystic of flying. He has edited Flying Magazine articles and stories. As a former US Air Force pilot, he is now seldom without an airplane. The photographs in this book are taken by Russell Munson. He has been actively involved with flying and photography. It's a story for people who follow their dreams, make their own rules. They're not afraid to fail, not afraid to break the shackles of society, family, and are ready to come out of the darkness of the unknown into the known. For most seagulls, life consists simply of eating and surviving. Flying is just a means of finding food. However, Jonathan Livingston Seagull is not an ordinary bird. For him, flying is life itself. Against the conventions of seagull society, he seeks to find a higher purpose and becomes the best of doing what he loves. This is what a fable about the importance of making the most of our lives, even if our goals run contrary to the norms of our flock, tribe, and neighborhood. Through the metaphor of flight, Jonathan's story shows us that if we follow our dreams, we too can achieve. Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Part 1. Jonathan Livingston Seagull is a free spirited bird of flight. It wants to try different tricks and become an example for its peers. It thinks flying is an art form and it needs to be celebrated, not just reduced as a means to gather food. The rest of his family and groups do not share the same thoughts about flying and encourage Jonathan to be more composed and conservative. One day, Jonathan jumps from massive height and tries to turn while nearing the ocean surface. It fails in its attempt and crashes into the water and faints. When it regains consciousness, Jonathan decides to accept its limitation and join the rest of the flock. But in an accidental movement, it completes the feat that it had tried before and regains the confidence to develop its skills further. The next day, Jonathan flies even higher and repeats the trick. Unfortunately, it flies through a moving flock and is punished for its careless acrobatics. Later, a council meeting happens and Jonathan is sent out of the flock. Now, he's free from all the restrictions. Jonathan finds the freedom to become an even better flyer. It tries to perfect its techniques and also learns to hunt better. One night, while flying, Jonathan meets 2 other seagulls who ask him to move higher. Jonathan realizes they are talking about the final ascent to heaven, and finally, he does so. Jonathan arrives at the new world and feels refreshed. It feels younger, healthier, more energetic. It is also able to fly higher with far less effort. Jonathan also sees other seagulls at the shore. However, it feels that there should be even more birds than there are. He is welcomed by its new teacher, Sullivan. Jonathan wants to learn more about flying and learns that it is rare to find young seagulls at such a place. The rest of the birds had arrived there after several lifespans, and Jonathan was not an exception. It meets a new mentor in Chiang who has perfected the art of flight. Chiang tells Jonathan that this place is not heaven, and heaven is a state of perfection. Chiang shows Jonathan his ability to disappear into thin air and then reappear at a different place in an instant. Chiang also agrees to teach Jonathan. Chang helps Jonathan and then disappears completely one day. Sullivan congratulates Jonathan after achieving the perfect flight. However, Jonathan expresses his desire to return to Earth and help other seagulls who want to learn more about flight. Jonathan says its goodbyes and returns to Earth. It finds another excommunicated seagull named Fletcher, who shares the same dreams as it did once. Jonathan decides to take Fletcher under its wings and train Fletcher, and Fletcher becomes the pupil of Jonathan Livingstone's Seagull. Part 3. Jonathan starts Fletcher's training and sees it flourish into a strong flyer. After some time, Jonathan has many more students. He trains all of them to think freely and conquer their own physical limitations. He trains them hard but fairly. After months of training, Jonathan claims that they all must now return to the flock and teach others to embrace such freedom of flight. They are all reluctant to go back, and Jonathan returns on its own. Seeing him fly away, the students decide to follow their mentor. They all land near the shore where the rest of the flock develop. They are met with a hostile and cold reception. Jonathan decides to concentrate on his students and continues to train them publicly. As the days go by, the young girls of the flock develop fascination towards Jonathan and its students. They assume Jonathan to be divine and want to learn from it. Soon, Jonathan gets more young students, eventually rising to several hundred. One day, Fletcher accidentally hits a rock while trying to avoid crashing into a young girl. When it wakes up, it is attacked by the flock for being sinister in his desire to injure the young girl. Jonathan sees this and helps Fletcher escape. They both disappear into the thin air and reappear at a secure distance. Fletcher realizes that Jonathan is not divine. It too can disappear like Jonathan. Furthermore, Jonathan advises him to become an instructor and describes Fletcher's own training as complete. Passing on the responsibility to Fletcher, Jonathan says its final goodbye. Part 4. After several years pass by, Jonathan's feat become a source of inspiration for many seagulls. They start to learn and experiment with flight and break free from their own limitations. Fletcher and the rest of the students of Jonathan are admired as saints and are soon put on a pedestal. Jonathan itself is somewhat of a cult personality, and several places of devotion crop up in his honor. Soon the normal seagulls reject flying and spend time reciting hymns in praise of Jonathan and its disciples. All of the students die one by one. Fletcher is the last one to survive, and he remains confused as to how the seagulls forgot about the only lesson Jonathan ever taught, that is, freedom to fly. After Fletcher dies, all the seagulls stop flying and devote more time in the worship of the divine, Jonathan and its disciples. However, there are few seagulls that reject such cult status and focus on flying for more, achieving happiness and a higher state of being. One such bird, named Anthony, decides to fly at the renowned feats of Jonathan for himself. However, while in mid-flight, Anthony is interjected by a glorious flyer. This new girl is exquisite to look at and can fly effortlessly. Anthony is mesmerized, and the new girls ask Anthony about being a teacher. Anthony is excited to be taught by just majestic flyers. The new mentor is none other than Jonathan Livingston Seagulls itself. Richard Bach has rightly mentioned here, don't believe what your eyes tell you. All this show is a limitation. Look with your understanding, find out what you already know, and you will see the way to fly. In a nutshell, we can say Jonathan Livingston Seagull, it's a story about potential, about dreamers, about passion, and the meaning of life. It's about an ordinary seagull who teaches himself to be an extraordinary. This is a story for anyone who is a dreamer with a passion that doesn't fit. There is a common saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, which means beauty doesn't exist on its own. It is created by the observer. No one can escape from the power of the time, even the most beautiful thing or person in the world. On this theme, I'm going to discuss a famous poem by Sumitra Chakravarti, The Phoenix of Beauty. Sumitra Chakravarti was an alumnus of Calcutta University with an honors degree in English literature, secured a gold medal in a master's and PhD on the topic, The Search for Identity in Contemporary British Fiction. She has taught English literature at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels in Bangalore and guided research students. She has presented papers in several national and international seminars, both in India and abroad. She has published a book of poems titled The Silent Cry, which was published in 2002. Her poems have already been broadcasted over All India Radio. What is phoenix? The phoenix is a mythological bird known throughout all cultures and all ages. When it dies, the bird bursts into flames and is reborn from its ashes, immortalizing it. Each life is said to be between 500 and 1,000 years. With the attractiveness of a peacock and the size of an eagle, this bird symbolizes beauty and strength. The phoenix cry is considered a beautiful sound, much like a beautiful song. Through its beauty and unusual depth, the phoenix has become a symbol of immortality, renewal, and rebirth. Now let's try to understand a connection between phoenix and beauty. The poet uses metaphor describing lotus flower and says that it is not always necessary that beautiful things are found only in higher places of life or nature. They can also take birth from the lowest places. Though lotus flower is always considered the most beautiful flower in the world, it takes birth in the slime, that is mud. Similarly, the phoenix bird takes birth from its own ashes. Associated with the sun, a phoenix obtains a new life by arising from its own ashes. Stanza 1. It was a day after the little bird opened her eyes, looked around at the byre of elders, long stemmed, dun petals trailing weary streamers across memories of yesterday, when they shone in fragrant loops over the awning and twinkled in black braids. The opening stanza of the poem gives us an idea of a future. In the process of blooming flower, when the little bird takes birth, it observes both death and life. First, she observes the death of the long stem or tired petals, which were very active and shining the previous day. Hence, this bird has experienced both life and death, which is the very truth of life. This teaches us that time is powerful and can destroy beauty. What was beautiful yesterday should undergo changes and will become ugly the next day and make paths for new things. Stanza 2. She looked up at the young sun, uttered her birth cry. The pallbearers came hidden in the heap of yesterday. She rode the weary path of death, her young gaze fastened on the sun, olden now, and the wiser with the wisdom that turns its gaze from the longing of young eyes for life. The desire of innocence to linger in a world with wonder long dead, beauty stretching skeletal arms to the sun whose first rays once smiled on a new world. Now the little bird has got the experience of life. To get vigor and energy, it looks at the young sun, which always shines brightly. Since her birth, she has seen the deaths in the form of how the pallbearers they carry the dead ones. That's a harsh truth of life. Now, after gaining this wisdom at her birth itself, the young bird looks at the sun and finds the sun is very wise. The sun looks so innocent that it turns towards the young petal and gives life. The bird wishes that this innocence should continue even in the world of guilt. The first ray of the sun had initially smiled on a new world, but now it no longer smiles because the people have changed their attitude towards nature. Stanza 3. Beauty dies hard, the lotus raises its head from its bed of slime. Two flowers bloom, splash red and yellow over the dust of yesterday and torn strips of greed. White teeth flash in a soot blackened face, merry eyes dance in the hunt the dung heap unfolds. In this stanza, the poet speaks about the truth of life by the metaphor of lotus flower, which has its beauty, but it takes birth from slime. The new flowers have the shades of red and yellow colors and look very attractive. These new flowers shine more brightly than yesterday's flowers, which shows that external beauty is not permanent. So there's a switch over in the stanza. The poet moves on to human being from the flower. The images, the white teeth flash, the blackened face, the merry eyes, describe the beauty of an individual who may be black, yet they are happy. It means to say that beauty or happiness has no limitation. It can also emerge from the lowly considered things like lotus flower takes birth from its slime. The poet says here, beauty dies hard. She means to say that beauty never dies. It comes back in different forms. Hence, we can say that this poem brings the different phases of beauty and the different notions of beauty. The poem, at one level, explains the beauty of nature unfolding from the ugliest of things. On the other level, reflects the general attitude of people to disregard anything ugly. Even though the dung is ugly, the lotus flower blooms in the slime. The poem also reflects the destructive power of time. It has been well said that beauty lies in the eyes of beholder. Hello everyone. Do you feel like going back to childhood and playing with toys? Do you think everyone has unfulfilled wishes? Are dreams a way to fulfill our wishes? If you want to seek these questions answers, then you should read this famous story, The Hoop by Fyodor Sologub. I have tried to summarize the story in simple language. Before that, let's know about the author of the story. The Hoop is written by the famous Russian author, dramatist, essayist, and the poet of the symbologist, Mr. Fyodor Sologub. The story begins like this. A woman was taking her morning stroll in a lonely suburban street along with her 4 year son. The boy was playing efficiently with a hoop, which was large, new, bright yellow colored hoop. He was running after his hoop awkwardly, laughed with joy, thrust forward his plump little leg, bared the knee, and flourished his stick. Everything was new to the boy, like the street in early morning, the charming sun, and the distant din of the city. There was an old man in shabby dress who was keenly observing the little boy who was playing with the hoop. The old man was standing at the street crossing. He was quite confused how this little boy was enjoying the new game. He himself accepted that play is mischief, and children are mischief makers. He was surprised to see that the mother was very happy to see her son playing with the hoop, and it was quite easy to see that they were used to warmth and comfort. Meanwhile, the old man started to recall his childhood and compare his life with the little boy's life. His life was miserable, similar to a dog's life. Since his childhood, he has seen only poverty, misery, hunger, cold, and drubbings. He had never experienced a single joy. He never had fun with a hoop or other playthings of well to do folks. He envied with the boy, and this envy tormented the old man. He went to work, to the factory, where he had been working since his childhood. All day he thought of the boy. It was a fixed, deep rooted thought. He could see the boy's playing methods with the hoop and the little boy's physical appearance. All day, amid the din of the factory wheels, the boy with the hoop appeared to him. Not only this, at night he saw the boy in a dream. The old man's fancy started at work. Now he had become a little boy. For the moment, his mother was a gentlewoman. He had his hoop, his little stick. He was playing, driving with the hoop with the little stick. He wore a white costume. His little legs were plump, bare at the knee, just like that little boy. In this manner, the days passed, the work went on, but the fancy persisted. One evening, the old man was returning home from factory. He saw the hoop of an old barrel lying in the street. It was a rough and dirty object. The old man trembled with happiness. Tears appeared in his dull eyes. He saw here and there and picked up the hoop with trembling hands and took it to his home. He was very happy to get it, something which he saw in his dream. Now it was in front of him. It would stimulate his dreams. He kept it with him, and the sight of the hoop always reminded of the happy little boy. One happy morning, the old man gathered courage and moved towards the woods to play with the hoop. He coughed as he made his way among the old trees and the bushes in the woods. The nature welcomed him. He struck with the stick and sent the hoop rolling across the green field. The man laughed, brightened at once, played with the hoop just like that little boy. He started to play as efficiently as that little boy. Another fancy took birth here. It seemed to him that he was small, beloved, and happy. It also seemed to him that he was being looked after by his mother, who was following close behind and smiling. Like a child on his first outing, he felt refreshed on the bright grass. He smiled with his toothless mouth. In this manner, the old man started to go to the woods on every morning and enjoy playing with the hoop with fear and enthusiasm. As usual, he used to go to woods early morning. He started suffering from cold, and after a few days, he died in the factory among strangers, indifferent people, with a happy expression. His memory soothed him. He lived the moment of being a child. He had laughed, scampered across the green grass among the dark trees. Even his beloved mother had followed him with her eyes. Hence, we can say that the old man lived the moments of his life, the moments which he could not enjoy in his childhood. Hence, this story teaches us that there is no age of learning, there is no age barrier for joy. Only one thing is required: we need to dare to dream, which this old man did, and one day he could see his dreams come true. Hello everyone. Today we will discuss John Milton's famous sonnet, How Soon Hath Time. John Milton is one of the best known English poets of the Romantic era, a period where poetry was about the personification of nature and a new moment of aesthetics was evolved. As a scholarly man of letters, Milton's prose and poetry deal with the contemporary issues and reflect the religious flux and the political upheaval of England of his time. He is best known for his epic poems Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained. John Milton's How Soon Hath Time is a Petrarchan sonnet. It's also known as an Italian sonnet. It was brought to English by Sir Thomas Yat and Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey. It's a poem of 14 lines, which is divided into the two sections. The 8-line stanza is called octave, and the 6-line stanza is called sestate. This sonnet is written in the iambic pentameter. Each line has 5 pairs of stressed and unstressed syllables, which are making it in the 10 syllables in all. The rhyming scheme of the sonnet is ABBA, ABBA, CDE, DCE. Miltonic sonnet usually reflects upon a single sentiment with a turn of thought in its sestate or from the 9th line. Now let's discuss the theme of the sonnet. This sonnet begins in a tone of frustration and despair. Later, the poet comforts himself by turning to God. It's believed to have written on 9th December 1631, that is Milton's birthday. Let's analyze the sonnet line by line. How soon hath time, the subtle thief of youth, stolen on his wing my 23rd year? My hasting days fly on with full career, but my late spring no butter blossom shoots. In these lines, Milton speaks about how time flies by and add the number to his age. He says that youth has been stolen by the time and has added the age of 23 to his life. This could mean that he has written this poem on his 23rd birthday. He calls time a thief of youth, which slowly has taken different phases of life away from him. Here, he personifies time with a bird, which takes his age away on its wings. He says that his prime time of life is being spent on his career and work, where he sees no reason or purpose. In the last line, he says that even though he is spending his prime time of life in his career, he sees no fruit or result of his hard work that's taking all of the time of his whole life. Perhaps my semblance might deceive the truth that I to manhood am arrived so near, and inward ripeness doth much less appear, that some more timely happy spirits endueth. In these lines, Milton speaks about how age is just adding numbers of his life, of the many years he has lived, but it has nowhere brought any kind of physical maturity in him. He says that he still does not look masculine and that his age is not visible in his appearance. This is a direct linkage to his collegiate years, where his feeble physical structure was deemed as girlish, feminine, resulting in him getting the title of the Lady of the Christ. With a feminine overall outlook, he continues to underestimate himself in comparison to the contemporaries, having accomplished much more in his prime age. In the last lines, he says that he is also unhappy in life with his failure of being a poet and lacking a respectable standing of a high man. Yet, be it less or more, or soon or slow, it shall be still in strictest measure even to that same lot, however mean or high, toward which time leads me in the will of heaven. All is, if I have grace to use it so, as ever in my great taskmaster's eye. In these lines, Milton comes to terms with reality and says that he needs the time and blessings of God. He says that sooner or later, be it a small amount or large, he will be blessed by the Almighty God. He says that time will lead him towards the gates of heaven or to the pit of hell. It is his destiny, and with time he will arrive there. John Milton says that he would wait and see the grace of the taskmaster or the Almighty God, anticipate for his blessings that may his fortune change into better someday. In these lines, there is some kind of introspection and acceptance that is seen. A poet is a religious person and he believes that someday God will show him the purpose of his life and lead him to the destiny. The term taskmaster implies that he considers that everything in the world is pre planned by God and he is the master behind all that happens around the world. Now let's discuss the poetic devices employed in this sonnet. The first one is here assonance, which means repetition of similar vowel sounds. So here similar vowel sounds can be seen in the words ear, career, near, appear, high, or heaven. The next poetic devices which is used here imagery. So we find here images in the different expressions, like in the line, my hasting days fly on with full career. The image of a man working day by day has been applied here. In the next line, that I to manhood am arrived so near, there's an image of a boy who is turning into a man. In the line, and inward ripeness doth much less appear, there's an image of inward youth which no longer appears. Another poetic device is personification. In the very first line, how soon hath time, the subtle thief of youth? Here, time is personified. Time is given the human like quality of being a thief. The next poetic device is here metaphor. That is also in the very first line, how soon hath time, the subtle thief of youth. Here, the time is compared to a thief. Next one is here, symbolism. Something that is simultaneously itself or a sign of something of. The expression, how soon hath time, the subtle thief of youth, it symbolizes the time which is passing by. In the expression, and inward ripeness doth much less appear, it symbolizes aging and the fact that his youth is starting to disappear. Another expression, stolen on his wings my 3 and 20th year, that symbolizes that the poet is 23 years old. Hyperbole, that means an extreme exaggeration. Hyperbole can be seen in the expression yet it be less or more, or soon or slow, it shall still be in the strictest measure even to that same lot, however mean or high, toward which time leads me and the will of heaven. All is, if I have grace to use it so, as ever in my great taskmaster's eye. So Milton is exaggerating the fact that he does not have the control over the time he has left in his life. He ultimately realizes that decision is in God's hand. So there's an hyperbole in this expression. The next one is here metonymy. That means to say it's a figure of speech which is characterized by the substitution of a term naming an object closely associated with the word in mind for the word itself. So in the last expression we find here taskmaster's eye, one of the expression that means God, the Almighty God. Diction and tone. The tone is depressed and upset. The diction or the choice of the words Milton uses here expresses this depressed tone of the poem. Overall, the diction is relaxed and complies well with the depressed tone. The tone of the poem delivers the idea that Milton has just turned 23 years old and he's having a hard time grasping it. Milton feels as if he can no longer see the youth in him and he is growing depressed. So the poet says rightly, how soon hath time, the subtle thief of youth, stolen on his 3 and 20th year, that I to manhood am arrived so near, and inward ripeness doth much less appear. Hence, this sonnet teaches us enjoy your youth while you have it, enjoy life while you still have the capability. The overall meaning is to enjoy life. That is also the central message in this poem. So don't live your life looking back and regretting the opportunities you didn't take. Have you ever thought who are your role models? Are they father, mother, teacher? Do we really need the role models? Let's try to find these questions answers from Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam's famous article, Give Us a Role Model. It's a chapter 2 of Kalam's famous book, Ignited Minds. Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam was born on 15th October 1931 in a Tamil Muslim family in the pilgrimage center of Rameshwaram on Pamban Island, Tamil Nadu. His father, Jalaluddin, was a boat owner and imam of a local mosque. His mother, Ashiyama, was a housewife. He was the youngest of four brothers and one sister in his family. In his early childhood, he sold newspapers to supplement his family's income. In his school years, Kalam had average grades, but he was described as a bright student and hardworking student, and he had a desire to learn. He spent hours on his studies, especially mathematics. After completing his education in Ramanathapuram, he went on to join St. Joseph's College, Tiruchirappalli. He graduated in physics in 1954. He moved to Madras in 1955 to study aerospace engineering in Madras Institute of Technology. He has been popularly known as Missile Man. He actively participated in Pokhran mission. The Wings of Fire, Ignited Minds are his well-known books, which is well appreciated across the world. He was honored with Bharat Ratna and many prestigious awards by the government. He was also elected to the highest position as a President of India He died on 27 July 2015 while speaking in a program held in Shillong. The chapter 2, Give Us a Role Model, begins with Mahatma Gandhi's quotation to quote, men often become what they believe themselves to be. If I believe I cannot do something, it makes me incapable of doing it. But when I believe I can, then I acquire the ability to do it, even if I didn't have it in the beginning. Unquote, Mahatma Gandhi. Kalam's passion to meet young students. Dr. Kalam asked why he would like to meet young students in particular. To get this question's answer, he recalls his student's life. He feels that he was always assessed his worth by the value of his contribution. Further, he comments that unless our students and the young believe that they are worthy of being citizens of a developed India, how will they ever be responsible and enlightened citizens? There is nothing mysterious about the abundance in developed nations. The historic fact is that the people of these nations believed over many generations that they must live a good life in strong in the prosperous nation. The reality became aligned with their aspirations. Dr. Kalam's views on abundance and spirituality. Dr. Kalam opines that abundance and spirituality are inclusive and there is nothing wrong to desire material things. He says he himself cherishes a life with minimum of possessions. Nature does not do anything by half measures, as we observe around us. Garden will be filled with flowers in a particular season. If we look up, the universe stretches into infinitude, vast beyond itself. In this way, abundance and spirituality are not exclusive. Dr. Kalam's opinion on materialism. Dr. Kalam opines that it's wrong to feel that it is somehow shameful or non spiritual to desire material things. There's nothing wrong with an attitude of making do with the minimum in leading a life of asceticism. It's our right to dream of a good life, an abundant life, a life full of pleasures and comforts, and work for that golden era. Whatever you do must come from the heart, express your spirit, and thereby you will also spread love and joy around you. Now let's have a discussion about Kalam's meetings with different children at different schools and how he used to address those students and how he used to answer those questions. Kalam's first visit took place in a high school in Tripura, where he addressed about 500 students and teachers. There were a series of questions asked by students. The first question was, from where do we get a role model? To answer this question, Kalam said, the best role model I think of would be your father, your mother, and your school teacher. He mentioned that parents and teachers have a big responsibility, and he personally believed that the full development of child with a value system can come only from these people. Then Kalam speaks of his own role model, that's his father, his mother, and his teacher, Shiva Subramania Iyer. His teacher convinces his father to send him to a school, setting aside all his financial constraints. Kalam says that every parent should make an effort to guide children to be good human beings, enlightened and hardworking. The teacher has to play role model in generating creativity in the child. This triangle is indeed the real role model according to Kalam. He further emphasized that education and teacher students relationship have to be seen not in business terms but with the nation's growth in mind. Another girl, in all seriousness, asked a question. Every day, we read in the newspaper or hear our parents talk about Atangwadis. Who are they? Do they belong to our country? To answer this question, Kalam says that he gives a reference of two epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata, where finally peace triumphs. It seems to him that both good and evil will survive side by side. How to minimize the evil through our spiritual growth is a question that has persisted throughout human history. Kalam's visit at St. Mary's School, Dindigul, Tamil Nadu. On another occasion, Kalam addressed a very large gathering of students at St. Mary's School, Dindigul in Tamil Nadu on their 75th anniversary celebrations. Here, one student asked, I have read your book, Wings of Fire. You always give a message to dream. Tell me, why should we dream? Kalam asked the whole crowd to recite together. He said, "Dream, dream, dream." Dream transforms into thoughts. Thoughts result in actions. Further, he told, if there are no dreams, there are no revolutionary thoughts. If there are no thoughts, no actions will take place. Hence, parents and teachers should allow the children to dream. Another boy asked, please tell me, who would be the first scientist in the world? As children are a source of unending questions, and Kalam answered this question saying, child is the first scientist. All children enjoyed this way of thinking. Kalam's visit to Tezpur University, Assam. During Kalam's visit to Tezpur University, Assam, for the convocation ceremony, he spoke on indomitable spirit. He was also conferred honorary doctorate degree. There he faced two questions. One was, why cannot water from Brahmaputra, which is in flood much of the time, be diverted to Tamil Nadu or Rajasthan, which are starved of water? To which he answered, India Vision 2020 demands from the young that they start a great mission of connecting rivers cutting across the straits. Another student asked him, sir, big leaders in any field, they don't come and they don't talk to us. Kalam convinced the student, saying that he narrated the same to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister would request the leaders in different fields to interact more with the children of our country for better understanding of their own purpose in life, as well as for helping creating a better future for our children. Kalam's visit to Sri Ramakrishna School, Bokaro, Jharkhand. During Kalam's visit to Ramakrishna School, Bokaro, Jharkhand, Kalam addressed more than 3,000 students and got amazed to see their creativity on display in an exhibition of the paintings, toys, and other items made by them. One student asked him, in Jharkhand, it is green everywhere. We have forests, streams, and hills. Why is it that we have desert in Rajasthan? This question reminded Kalam of a similar one in Assam. Why can't the Brahmaputra's waters can be taken to Tamil Nadu and Rajasthan? To this question, Kalam replied, it has to be one of the greatest missions of India to connect rivers so that water can reach many water starved states. Visionary action is needed. When you grow up, you will probably be a part of our constructing this nation and giving shape to these thoughts. Later, one child came to Kalam with a serious expression and he asked, sir, will your Agni missile cross the ocean and reach America? Kalam was a little startled by this thought and he remarked, for us, no country is our enemy to send Agni there, particularly America is our friend. Agni symbolizes our strength. It shows that India has all the capabilities. Dr. Kalam's visit to Cuttack. During Kalam's visit to Cuttack, he participated in the birthday celebrations of the late Justice Hariyar Mahapatra. He went there at the invitation of Justice Rangnath Mishra. His biography in Oriya was released. At the end of his speech, the youngsters they crowded him and asked many questions. The first question was, sir, tell us which are your favorite books that you loved and which have shaped your mind. Kalam named four books. The first one is Men the Unknown by Dr. Alex Carroll, a doctor turned philosopher and Nobel laureate. This book highlights how the mind and the body both have to be treated in an element as the two are integrated. The second book is Tiruvallur's Tirukural, which provides an excellent code of life. The third book is Light from Many Lamps by Lillian Watson, which has touched him very deeply. It illuminates how we live and has been an invaluable guide to him for 50 years. The fourth book is The Holy Quran is of course a constant companion to Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. While Kalam addressing another gathering of school children in Anand, Gujarat, one smart boy asked a very intelligent question: who is our enemy? The answer was poverty. Another child asked a question: tell me, sir, are Pakistani weapons stronger than Indian ones? The child got this question due to the media. Kalam answered, saying that this is a unique characteristic of our country to belittle our capabilities. It may even be genetic. India can design, develop, and produce any type of missile and any type of nuclear weapon. This is a capability only four countries in the world have. You remove all the doubts from your mind. So, dear friends, in this extract, Kalam has selected only 11 questions from among hundreds of questions he was asked during the course of meeting 40,000 high school students so far. The questions reflect the children's innocence, but most of all, they show how strongly they feel the desire to live in a strong and prosperous nation. He also realized he also realized from these sessions how important it is for them to have role models, whether in science, industry, sports, entertainment, or some other field. Now, the question is, can we give our children a role model and how? Speaking on his role models, Kalam recalls Dr. Vikram Sarabhai's vision succeeding over 3 decades through sustained and coordinated achievement. At working that any other endeavor was the same desire for to exceed the limits. Kalam says, as we try and excel, role models play a guiding role. The power of Vikram Sarabhai was such that others took up his vision and completed it long after he was no more. For you, it could be someone else whom you admire, sportsperson, a teacher, a successful entrepreneur. Kalam had the chance to meet a legendary personality, a role model herself, Lata Mangeshkar. Lata Mangeshkar was presiding over a function in remembrance of her father, Master Deenanath Mangeshkar. Lata Mangeshkar is a recipient of Bharat Ratna, and he felt honored that she had asked him to inaugurate the 450-bed Deenanath Hospital and Research Center in Pune. He visited the hospital just before the inauguration. He found that it would be treating nearly 30% of the patients free. He was touched by the fact that, despite her wealth and fame, she had not lost the sight of the fact that one needs to do all one can to help relieve the suffering of others. Her songs played over the radio have brought pleasure to countless hearts over the decades. During the India China conflict in 1962, her song, "ए मेरे वतन के लोगों" moved an entire nation. Few people can claim to have influenced the lives of millions in such a delightful way. Kalam further says that role models can help us focus on what is correct for us as individuals, as groups, and of course, as a nation. They can also lead us to great success. A renaissance is imperative for us to once again become a knowledge superpower rather than simply providing cheap labor in the areas of high technology. Let's summarize. Nation's wealth is the young generation of the country. When they grow, who can be the role models? Mother, father, and elementary school teachers are very important role models. When the child grows, the role models will be the national leaders of quality and integrity in every field, including politics, the sciences, the technology, and hello everybody. Have you ever heard this statement which is on your screen here that कुछ पाने के लिए कुछ खोना नहीं कुछ करना पड़ता है? Very few of you might have heard this statement because generally we hear a particular dialogue called that कुछ पाने के लिए कुछ खोना पड़ता है. So to understand the statement, कुछ पाने के लिए कुछ खोना नहीं, कुछ करना पड़ता है. Today we are going to have a discussion about a famous mythological story, How Kach Got the Secret. This story is compiled by Thangam Krishnan, a famous story writer whose stories was published in Class magazine and Company magazine. He was born in 1949. His schooling happened in Tirunagar, Madurai. He has been a famous storyteller. Long before, the churning of the ocean of milk gave the gods Amrit, or the elixir of eternal life that made them immortal. Gods and demons were engaged in severe war. There were many casualties on both the sides. While gods perished by dozens, the demons perished by hundreds. Yet, a strange thing was happening. In spite of less casualties, the number of gods seemed to decrease, while with more casualties, the number of demons seemed to increase. Kach, the handsome young son of Brihaspati, the great teacher of gods, asked about this downfall. His father, Brihaspati, explained that Shukracharya, the learned teacher of demons, can revive the dead demons by chanting the magic mantras of Sanjeevani, and that's the reason that the demons' number never decrease. This mantra was not known to gods. Having known this, Kach expressed his desire to go to Shukracharya and learn Sanjeevani mantra by becoming his student. But all the gods denied, as they were afraid if Kach could be killed by demons. But Kach was determined to take this risk, and he was also told that Shukracharya has a beautiful daughter, Devyani, and he might fall in love with her. Kach assured that he will never fall in love with that woman, however beautiful she may be. He also took a vow to remain unmarried until his mission is fulfilled. Now Kach has become the disciple of Shukracharya and also took an oath to remain unmarried until such time and totally concentrate on his studies. Shukracharya taught him many things in the years that Kach has stayed with him. The one thing that he did not teach, however, was the Sanjeevani mantra. With all his passion, Kach continued to serve his teacher and his beautiful daughter Devyani. Devyani was a lively young girl of a beauty that was rare and delicate. She was an apple of Shukracharya's eye. The learned master did everything in his power to make his daughter happy. He could not refuse her anything. Kach and Devyani became good friends. Kach told her many stories of the valor of battles between the gods and the demons. Both of them used to play hide and seek, and in such manner they used to spend the time happily. In spite of this closeness between Devyani and Kach, Kach never forgot his vow even for a moment. When Devyani expressed her love to Kach, Kach firmly rejected, saying that he had taken a vow for a very important cause and nothing on earth will make him change his mind. One day, demons saw Kach with Devyani and recognized him to be Brihaspati's son. The demons got angry and waited for a chance to kill him. Since they could not directly accuse the teacher, they waited for an opportunity to catch Kach when he was alone. Then, next day, when Kach took the cattle for grazing, the demons got an opportunity to kill him. While he was going up along the mountain path, the demons came behind him and gave him such a push that he was thrown in the air and fell down the mountain and died. When the cattle returned in the evening without Kach, Devyani got very worried. Devyani, who was by now deeply in love with Kach, was worried and went to her father. She told him that Kach was missing and that he must do something to get him back. She said, I fear that someone has killed him or he is dead somewhere in the forest. Please use your knowledge to bring back my Kach. I cannot live without him and shall die if he is not brought back from the dead. Shukracharya, who himself was fond of Kach, he used his powers and breathed life into Kach. Later, Kach explained Shukracharya how he was killed by the demons. After few weeks, the demons spotted Kach again. This time, when Kach was alone, the demons carried him away and flung him far into the sea. They clapped their hands when Kach drowned and died. Devyani waited and waited for Kach, and when he did not come home, she started crying again. She would not touch her food. No amount of consoling by her father could help her. Shukracharya could not refuse his daughter's request and utter the Sanjeevani mantra. After some time, Kach came back home. Kach explained the whole incident to her. Now, it was a long time since he had promised the Sanjeevani mantra to the gods, and still he had not got any success. Then, what he said to the gods, the idea struck his mind, and the idea was you have to be in the game to win the game. That idea again brought a new energy and the new enthusiasm to bring back the Sanjeevani mantra and to learn the Sanjeevani mantra. And the idea is again, you have to be in the game to win the game. This time, Kach himself advised the demons to kill him in different way so that he could not be revived by Shukracharya. He suggested them to burn him and mix his ashes in the wine and request Shukracharya to drink, and later he will not be revived. They did the same. They threw him into the fire, and when he was burnt, took his ashes and, unknown to Shukracharya, mixed it in his wine. In this way, Kach soon entered his teacher's stomach. When Kach did not return to the hermitage, Devyani again went to her father and requested him to bring Kach back to life. Shukracharya started chanting the mantras which would bring Kach to life. Kach, who was already inside the stomach of Shukracharya, revealed his dilemma from inside in a quiet voice. He said that he would not come out of the stomach of his guru, as that would mean killing of his guru. After this, Shukracharya asked Kach to tear open his stomach and come out. Kach did the same as he was told. When he came out, the guru died. Kach used his knowledge of Sanjeevani mantra and breathed life into his guru, like a dutiful son should do. He said the magic words and Shukracharya came back to life. Devyani was very happy, and now that both of them were alive, and after a few days, with his mission accomplished, Kach took leave of his teacher and a reluctant Devyani. He, he returned to the gods. He gave them the secret he had learned. So, dear friends, after reading this mythological story, we can say that if you want to win the game, you have to be in the game. In spite of facing so many difficulties, so many hurdles, so many challenges, only one thing, we should have some patience, we should have some planning. So, it's well said that you have to be in the game to win the game. Thank you so much for watching this video. You can reach me at mukeshenglish@gmail.com, and don't forget to subscribe my channel and comment. Thank you once again. Have a good day.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why.